So I'm very excited to announce the next panel, which is blockchain and cryptocurrency. And we have Erick Schneider, our CrossTech board member, who's going to be moderating the session. We also have two panelists that are very important to us and that have made a difference in this industry. We have Jhoel Oviedo from Nuvei, and we also have Henrique Cardoso from FoxBit. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Well, I love the introduction. Thank you guys for having joined there. This is going to be an interesting one. What do you need, my friend? Yep. Logistic pleasures. All right, so we're going to talk about blockchain, and we're not going to get into what is a cryptocurrency, what's going on with FTX, all this stuff. This is very interesting stuff, but we're going to try to keep it as relevant as possible to the CrossTech piece and talk about, from a functionality standpoint, what's the relevance to our industry and the cross borders? What's the potential of leveraging blockchain technology for offering services to B2B, for example, that Henrique is going to talk about a little bit more, Simplex that Jhoel is going to be representing on that side, and what does this mean to the end consumer and to the end payout partners? If there's any tough questions from the audience, hit us up with them, and I probably won't be able to answer, but I know some experts that can. There, Josh, can you just raise your hand there from Elliptic? That's our true expert on crypto on this side. So anything that comes up, welcome any type of open exposure, any type of questions that go through. If someone has a differing perspective, hit us with it. Absolutely, this is not a need to be polite. This is a need to be an open and a discussion forum in which I think on the blockchain side, there's no clear answer on this either. It's not like this is a tried and true, this is how we go with. I'll start with some light level questions that I obviously have an opinion on, but I wanted to get other people's opinion on the panel. We'll talk a little bit about an introduction first there before I hit you guys with the tough ones. Henrique, do you want to start off?
Sure. My name is Henrique, and thank you very much for all to come by. And I work for FoxBit, and I have 20 years experience on cross-border trading, not exactly payments, and now we are going to talk about crypto and payments in this industry. So FoxBit was launched in 2014, so we have almost 8 years. It's going to complete in 3 weeks. And we started as a crypto exchange in Brazil. We are focusing in the retail market in Brazil. We have also now the B2B segmentation, right, of the customers. So we are seeing a lot of interest in crypto as a method of payment.
Excellent. More on that later. Jhoel?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jhoel Oviedo, Business Development Director for Nuvei. We are a global payments provider in over 45 countries. We are a public company in Canada as well in the US. And happy to be here with you all.
Thanks, guys. One of the things that I wanted to highlight there is, do you notice the level of dress? There's such a palpable difference, right? I remember coming to this event back in 2017, and I had on my suit and tie. And then I said, I should be more fintechy. And so I lost the tie, I had a t-shirt, but I still had the jacket. And now if you see me, I'm in the crypto world, they're wearing a hoodie. This is a palpable difference to go through. And it's an evolution that we're talking about there, at least an evolution in my wardrobe. But how does this translate then into the customers and this piece? So Henrique, you had talked a little bit about the starting off as a crypto exchange in Brazil, which I think is interesting. 2014 for a fintech is relatively new, but for a crypto company, it shows stability. It shows to go through. First and basic question. Is cryptocurrency, is blockchain technology, is there any type of question whether this is going to be around in 5-10 years? Is this something that we're still exploring, that it's tentative? Is it a sure deal that it's 100% going to take over the world? Is it someplace in the middle? Where do we stand with blockchain?
I believe it is going to be in the middle, right? Because we are seeing now a lot of interest in the utility of those of the blockchain itself, right? So we are seeing more payments in the domestic market. So if you want to buy a house in Brazil, you can use crypto to pay. So we deliver this product to the Brazilian market, right? Also, as I mentioned, we had the ramps for companies abroad that wants to receive in stable coins. So we are seeing the adoption. We are seeing that this is going to at least take a part of the market, right? where we need instant payments, where we need to convert investments into fiat. So this is...
All right, you heard Henrique, buy Bitcoin now. Jhoel, from your side, they're representing Nuvei. Nuvei is a growth by acquisition strategy that you've done, and you've acquired Simplex on the crypto side. I'd love to hear the rationale of that acquisition, and is it something that's going to be kept separate, or is it that you're going to serve crypto-native companies with Simplex, or is it you're going to start to merge Simplex into the overall Nuvei portfolio and have an obfuscation between the line of Web 2 and Web 3?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. First, I would like to answer that first question you had from Henrique. Henrique says in the middle, I think it's really going to take over the world, to be honest with you. I mean, yes, the adoption is there, and the excitement is there, the innovation is there. I mean, it's happening, today all over many industries. You have many payment providers entering the crypto space in one shape, facet of another. So I think it's going to be a huge game changer. In terms of Nuvei, yes, we acquired Simplex last year. Since their foundation back in 2014, actually, let me take a side from that. Nuvei, before the acquisition we made, we were already entered the crypto space by allowing our businesses to accept crypto as a form of payment, whether that via pay-ins and payouts. So naturally, it made sense for us to also enter the buying and selling of the crypto space by acquiring Simplex. So now we've fully integrated the Simplex platform into the Nuvei platform. Case in fact, we also just hired our SVP of digital assets because we do see this as a game changer in the payments industry. So the way we have been extrapolating the Simplex solution is, via pay-ins. Right now, we offer over 20 pay-in cryptocurrencies and over 8 cryptocurrencies for payouts. We're noticing that many of our financial partners want to enter the buying and selling of the crypto space. So why not, with our Simplex by Nuvei platform, allowing those businesses to buy and sell without holding the risk, without being the liquidity provider. We would do all that in a matter of weeks. You can be up and running. So,
all right, let's test that theory then to go through if truly is the natural way of adoption. Can you guys raise your hand if you've had any type of exposure to crypto, whether from an individual standpoint or from a company standpoint? Pretty darn high. All right. From a company standpoint exclusively, there with the companies that you represent, have you had any exposure to crypto from a business perspective as opposed to an individual? Still quite a few hands. Fewer, but quite a few hands. So this is a bit of a validation, right, to the business model. What are some of the challenges that you guys have seen as far as adoption? Was it from a regulatory standpoint, from a traditional finance institution trying to block, or from an original volatility piece? We talked a lot about FTX. Won't bring it up again, God forbid, in this part. But what are some of the challenges that you think as far as adoption that would slow this process down?
I believe that the regulation is needed because the traditional banks and companies don't want to step into something that they don't know what's going to happen. So, okay, let's open a new department to trade cryptos, something like that, or for payments, and then all of a sudden, the Federal Reserve, central bank of any country says, "Oh no, it's banned," right? So this is a big deal. This is even though there are adoption, there are fintechs and traditional payments companies that are using Nuvei is one of the cases, right? So it is increasing despite the regulatory framework. So after we have some regulation on it, the basic regulation, we are going to move much faster. I do believe in that.
Interesting. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, regulation is key. I mean, we have to sort of flush out all the bad actors. Right now, there's just so much excitement, and there's so many people and companies entering the crypto space. So we have to make sure that we just must have some regulation. Yes, there's some privacy component to it, but with privacy, you just have to have regulation. With innovation, especially introducing it to the world, you got to make sure that you have the right components in place to be able to function properly. But the main blockers are going to be those bad actors, and how you flush them out, and how do you create a well-sustainable business around, those functions.
Okay, so this is an interesting perspective. We've got two different panelists over here from both sides of the world and both sides of the coin. They're on the crypto side, right? You started off with the crypto exchange, and then you're working on a B2B model, Jhoel. So hear your thoughts on, have we put the cart before the horse on the speculative side of crypto? People who are, and I don't know if you guys have had this, but I've had this a lot. I jump into my Uber, and the Uber's like, oh yeah, I bought 1 million coins of Shiba Inu, and so I'm expecting to retire in the next year there because I bought $35 worth, right? Is this causing a detraction to mass adoption for? Is this kind of a run because of the volatility that this incurs, this type of friction that we've seen with centralized exchanges, for example? Is this a deterrent, a disadvantage, or is it a natural evolution of the market? There, Henrique, I'll ask your thoughts.
I think there's a natural evolution. It's the first step into crypto, right? So it's the way that people know crypto as a thing, something like that, right? So the speculation, everybody knows that this is around, right? You have thousands of crypto that was launched, thousands that die. You're going to have some that are really useful. So I think that's good in the end, but we need to convert this speculation into investment or to utility tokens, right?
It takes time. With anything that's being introduced new into the world, it takes time to evolve. It takes time to understand. Things that are happening now in the market absolutely doesn't help, but this part of the learning process. We all have to understand how to evolve, how to evolutionize, and I think everything will play its course.
Overly positive. Okay, good. I like that. I'll keep my investment so far. Another question that we've seen is, what's the true functionality of a blockchain? And I've gotten answers before on the blockchain like, oh, you can do anything with the blockchain. You can run the legal, you can have medical documents across the board. You can organize governments, and you can have digital identifications across the board. And I've also heard a lot around payments. So is blockchain better off or a disadvantage being marketed and packaged to the B2B customers there, for example, as saying you can do everything, or should we find some specific use cases and then grow the heck out of it that way? What are your thoughts on how to approach this?
There is a lot of uses of the blockchain itself, right? So in Brazil, there is a regulation that is coming to buy a house instead of go to a title company, you do in a blockchain, right? And then you have the title in the internet, right? So this is one step to one direction, right? So we have a lot of directions to take, and I think that the utility token there is more on the engagement of the consumer and the business. So one of the things that we launched was a spa business that was they launched the token, and so the consumers that buy the token has some discount in the business, and also they can use these tokens to governance. So they can vote, they can propose new ideas. So this engagement of the consumers and the business is interesting. For the
loyalty 2.0
yes.
is what it is, right? You don't just get loyalty points, but you're actively able to participate in the decisions if you're more an engaged customer, right? Which makes sense.
Exactly. And the customers can also sell the tokens, right? Don't buy and die with it. So you can sell, and then, okay, now I'm going to another company that has a different token that this is interesting, and we have some dividends, because the company can also, as they increase the volume of the services offered, they also launch new tokens for the holders. So there is a lot of things that we can keep customers looking to this business. So this is very interesting.
What about you, Jhoel?
Yeah, so in terms of adoption and how it relates to the cross-border payment space, the blockchain has an actual use case, specifically when it comes to instant settlement. Many cross-border remittances, for example, are looking for ways to send money faster quicker, more cost efficient. I'm going to give you an example. My mother lives in Dominican Republic, and she's working on a project. She just bought a home in front of the beach, a beautiful condo, and she needed some money to finish her project. So, of course, being her only son, I had to send the money. So, but it took about 7 days to get there. Now, naturally, for me, I'm always asking myself, why is everybody such in a rush to receive their money? It's going to get there. Relax. However, now I understand. You know, there's money she's losing. She needs to get her money to finish her project to start making money, right? So, stable coins, right? Being pegged to the dollar, working under the blockchain, being instant settled. All she needs is a wallet to receive that stable coin is a particular use case for the blockchain.
Perfect segue into the next part there, which I want to start separating blockchain from the underlying coin itself. And you brought up stablecoin there, USDC, which I understand that you've got a recent announcement on, which is very cool. Let's talk more about the coin itself and the utility piece that, Henrique, you brought up there. How can we leverage the coin as opposed to the underlying blockchain? What's the difference between the two, and what do you see the use cases for each one?
Yes, for the coin, it's important for someone that's going to buy to know exactly what the person is buying, right? So, okay, what's the advantage? Okay, in the case of the utility token, I'm going to have discounts of the service they're going to use anyways, right? So, or are going to have for speculation, or are going to use this because this is widely used on several exchanges around the world, so I can send money back and forth to other to people in other countries, right? And instant and liquid, right? So there are a few factors that differentiate the coin to the blockchain. So you can have several coins, several purposes inside the same blockchain.
Perfect. Jhoel, love to hear your thoughts on USDC and how Nuvei is leveraging it.
Yes, so with our recent announcement about 13 days ago, we are now allowing our businesses to instant settle in stablecoins, particularly with USDC and Erick. With USDC, we have about 8 blockchains that we're working with today. And yeah, so this is the way we're facilitating ways on how to send money quicker, faster, much more cost effective. So yeah.
And a key differentiator in the market, there any type of merchant out there who's worked with any type of settlement program. You got Brazil, which settles within 30 days. You've got the United States, which settles within T+2, T+3 days. It's always nice to get your funds as soon as possible, but I think it's essential for rapidly growing companies, especially e-commerce, fintech, for example, because otherwise they have to provide their own liquidity in that bridge piece, right? It's someone who's saying, all right, a crypto exchange, for example, saying, great, you bought the cryptocurrency, we have allocated the cryptocurrency to you, but we're not going to receive the funds for 3 days if they purchase on a debit or credit card. It's tough because they have to provide their own liquidity on top of that, right? And it's not necessarily scalable the faster you grow. It's an inverse thought, right? It's like you think the faster you grow, the more money you're going to have. It's actually the opposite, right? It's the more liquidity you're going to have to provide with standby letter of credit, it gets expensive. And this is where that USDC functionality comes in, which it's same-day settlement, correct? Instead of T+3, it's same day, it stays within the ecosystem, and you don't have to use those capital outlays, or if you triple your piece, you're going to have to call up the bank and saying, I need an extension on my line, or I have to pay more. There's more restrictions on that part. I think the functionality of that is huge. There are some players that have done that. They're WorldPay, for example, and the other ones. Do you think that this is going to be the trend in the market in order to do settlement in the United States? And what about in other markets?
This is going to be the absolute trend. I mean, if you think about it right now with the card schemes, right? To accept the payment or even send the payment, you have to go through the card issuer, you have to go through the card networks, you have to go through the acquirer, to then finally the merchant or the business will say, okay, this is how much money I receive based on all these players that are involved. But when you're involving the blockchain, it just goes from the business to the nodes to the consumer. That's it. In a matter of you're eliminating the costs, you're eliminating the time, so all those components to really be effective.
All right, let's get into the meat of it. Can we use one of your services, can we use blockchain? Can we use a crypto token to facilitate a remittance from point A to point B, cross-border payment there? And if so, how would it work? And the reason that I ask this is, one, I think a lot of us are going to be interested in what's the functionality, how is this going to be relevant to our industry, is this something that we have to jump on? I will preface this before I give the smart people the opportunity to talk with my limited vision to it. I don't think it's ready just quite yet. I think there's a lot of talk, but I was at LaBitConf, which is a conference in Argentina based on Bitcoin last week. It was all crypto people. And so the crypto people are building their own crypto-native functionality. There's a company called Reserve, for example, which, in fact, I want to share with some people. My team from Felix over there, hey guys, we'll talk about this later on because I think there's a lot of synergies on this. But they're building their own platform to do remittances as opposed to leveraging the existing players in the industry in order to work with, which I think is interesting, but it's disruptive on that side. And I think the larger it gets, the more attention it's going to get from regulators, and the more regulators are going to step in going, wait a second, what's your KYC procedure? What's the infrastructure that you have to go on? It's flying a little bit under the radar as of right now, such as transactions to Venezuela, transactions to Cuba, the high-risk countries that are being underserved by our industry, for example. But I still see a very large gap between a crypto as a service being offered and saying, here's the packaged piece. So let's speak to a remittance company saying, here's everything that a blockchain can do for you, for example, or a company can offer these services, to what we would like to see in this industry. Do you guys share this vision, and how do you think it would work for remittances going forward?
For remittances, we are not doing exactly in FoxBit, but it was, as I know, is lower ticket for ticket values, right? So blockchain looks as a faster way to transfer the money, right? And cheap. And also when we are hitting some exchange with high liquidity, we have several market makers. So the pricing point is really important for the person that is going to receive $100, right? So you have like 5-10% gap, or fees that takes 5 or 10% of this money is important for the person that is receiving. So if you have several market makers, you don't have a lot of fees. You have just the transfers, and eventually some exchanges we are not charging for some pairs, right? So some exchanges they still charge, but charge less than 0.5%. So on the remittance side, I think that lower the value, better is the blockchain use, is the crypto as a whole.
I think we have still some ways to go. I think innovation, especially nowadays, is moving at a faster pace than what I think us humans want it to go to, especially when you're dealing with people in third world countries, because there's many countries out there still that are, have high percentages of the unbanked. There's many businesses in this conference that are still dealing with cash. So we still have to first take baby steps. We have to first involve them or introduce them into the digital world and how that can play into evolving their business. Then once we step into the digital world, okay, we'll look into how blockchain can change the world as well. So I think those are the steps that we need to take in order to evolve.
Okay, so that's interesting. Finding the balance between not jumping in with both feet and doing it in a phased approach on one side, but on the other, ensuring that you're doing it with enough speed to market so that you are maintaining your relevance. One of the challenges of that is we see crypto exchanges, they're able to offer remittances right now. And this is something that we talked about there in Argentina with your team, in which, let's take, what's a crazy company? So Binance. Right, so Binance, largest one, has over 120 million users around the world. So he's probably the richest guy in the world, and no one knows exactly how much he has, but it's probably more than Elon Musk. It's definitely more than I have. And what he says is, with Binance, once you're into the ecosystem, they do the KYC process, and they open up, let's say they open up an account in the United States with Binance.us, right, which is a subsidiary of theirs after they got into some trouble with the regulators. But the KYC process is done. They have the crypto exchange. Someone can purchase $400 worth of USDC, which you were talking about, stablecoin. They can say, all right, I want to send it to my loved one in the Philippines. And someone in the Philippines downloads the Binance app. James, do you have a Binance app? Yep. See. All right. So there's prevalence right across the board. You do too. All right. Great. So this is well known. So you guys can receive the USDC from a ledger. And to Henrique's point, there's no cost to this. It's done immediately. The funds are transferred. There's no cost for the trading pair to send. For Binance, there's no cost either because they have the same ledger, right? They're just saying it's still within our treasury. We're moving it from point A to point B, but it's still within our treasury and our ecosystem. Nothing changes. Now, the on and off ramps that you mentioned, though, Jhoel, I think that's the challenge to go through because in case you want to change it to local currency, you're going to need an off-ramp on that side. And this is where I think there's an opportunity for synergies. And as your point about baby steps and to go through, this may be the first step in offering and saying, all right, let's work with the bank and the crypto exchange. We'll understand this. We'll pair it up. But there's also a requirement that Binance has to have local on and off ramps, usually a regulated entity in that market in order to do this. And so this isn't something that they're going to take over the world tomorrow. I'm not going to say Western Union should be sold and short sold right now because cryptocurrency is going to take over. But crypto exchanges have the potential for doing this. I think it's how do we replicate this in the models that we talked about, whether traditional or digital. And there are two different models. The first one is offer the customer saying, yes, we will accept crypto as a form of payment to go through, which, Jhoel, I'd love to hear your thoughts on. But the second one is, let's start just with the bank-to-bank transactions. So the individual is just saying, I'm using fiat currency. I'm either paying in cash or I'm paying in credit card and my loved one is receiving cash or a deposit to a bank account, fiat to fiat. But the rails on the back ends that a remittance or a cross-border company can use is crypto. And to your point, Henrique, about the money market, the market makers there, for example, there has to be a liquidity of the currency. It has to be sufficiently large so that you charge less of a spread. But that transaction could be run on the back end on USDC or another more stable currency to go on. I'll pause there to make sure if I'm right there, first off, and second off, to hear about this level of adoption and how traditional and digital remittance companies can participate in this.
I believe the adoption is already happening. Now we see, like 3 years ago, is a totally different market. So we have in FoxBit 1 million customers. So they are transferring money in and out as crypto, right? So it is happening and people are using, so it's just a matter of time for the mass adoption.
Okay, so you mentioned you have 1 million users, which on one side is wonderful, and another time it's kind of scary to think about the scale that this is going through. What's the KYC process that FoxBit has? Do you do a KYC on everybody that opens up an account? Is there any type of regulatory requirement that you have?
There's no regulatory requirement, but we do make the KYC. So we match the name and the tax ID with several banks, data banks that we have. Just make sure that this person it is, whenever we have the picture, so the selfie the person takes at the moment using the app, right, to register. So with this basic data, we offer like this $1,000 limit with just that. If you want to trade more than that, then we need to know you better. So okay, I need your
enhanced due diligence.
Yes, yep. Enhanced due diligence, and also if you want to trade more, and then we need a tax return. We need to know whether you are capable to trade what we want to trade.
Sounds familiar, right? So this is exactly what we do in the remittance industry to make sure that know your customer components, the different stages to go on. From a transfer standpoint, do you share any of this information with the regulators right now about whether you see any types of transfers between peer-to-peer?
Transfers, no, but trades, yes. So any buy or sell, we have to report the IRS in Brazil. So they are aware of the tax ID that is buying or selling. There is some levels, right, that we have to comply with, like, okay, this is 100,000 reais on over. We need to tell right away. There are some that we can take a month, and then we send the numbers, right, the files. And we are always, as we are founded in 2014, right, we can imagine that the federal police knows us very well, right? So we help them. So a lot of Ponzi schemes was discovered, and then the guy calls the legal department and, okay, I have this name, this, block those. for withdrawal. So they have the phone, the cell phone for our legal department. So
I'm glad to hear this because there's a misconception in the market, I think, that a lot of crypto companies work outside of the regulatory environment or serve only criminals there, and Russian mafiosos are the ones that are the key drivers. It's less than 0.5%, guys, come on. No, but there really is a minor fraction because of the relevance of the regulatory close work. And what I think is interesting, when we talk about blockchain, the functionality of it, I think, is ideal from a compliance standpoint. Instead of sending remittances and having a long delay of saying, all right, at the end of the month, we can show you all the reporting of the transactions that are done, this can be done in real time. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword, though, because of the visibility that this has. And just this morning, I was taking a look at how much Vitalik had in Ethereum there, for example, because he has an ENS, which is an Ethereum naming service. So as of right now, if someone has a crypto wallet, it is 16 to 26 digits of hexagonal, this EN3527, very complicated. You can do it as just like an email. So I have one that's Erick.Schneider@crypto. Boom, done. It's something similar. The disadvantage to that is the visibility that these have. Someone can take a look at, what is it? There are a few different websites that offer this. In fact, ask me afterwards and I'll share it with you because this is interesting. You can go on that and you can see the list of transactions that any individual has done on that side or any company has done if you know what their wallets are. One of the challenges, I'm guessing, is none of us in the room want to share our competitive information or with either other parties or have it open because the visibility is there. They can say, oh yeah, you sent $247,000 this morning from country A to country B on this side. There shouldn't be that level of visibility. I think there's a challenge in that, in which finding the balance between the two, and going to Jhoel, your points about the baby steps of we can enable regulators to have access to see this on a more immediate scale, on a private net as opposed to a main net there. But limit that so that, MoneyGram is not taking a look at what Western Union is transferring and all, unless we think that it's worthwhile to open up. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have, in which it's not necessarily built for remittance companies. But there's a tailoring to this, and I'm going to go back and I promise to wrap this up there. There's a point about the on and off ramps, which I think is really important. Jhoel, Nuvei has done an excellent job of expanding on a global scale the on-ramps much beyond debit and credit card. There's a lot more payment functionality. But there are crypto competitors like an Alchemy Pay, for example, that are in the market. Do you think that you're going to compete directly with an Alchemy Pay? Do you think you're going to partner with them? Do you think you're going to blow them out of the water because you were acquisitions? What do you think of the on and off ramps that are currently existing in crypto to make mainstream, and how does that pertain to Nuvei?
Yeah, so we are not trying to compete with them. I think we have a lot of work that we have to do on our own in terms of how to adopt the cash businesses to go digital, and from the digital businesses to go to crypto. We are actually helping the crypto exchanges or the crypto providers embed payments into their infrastructure. So we're actually in some cases, actually, yes, partnering with them, because we are helping them embed payments because they want to also offer on-ramps and off-ramps, right? So we see that as a good competitive advantage.
Excellent. I wanted to leave some time there. We've got a couple minutes, and if there are any questions, Rafael, I've seen you've been very engaged on this. Hit us up. Something that you would like us to go deeper on, or a doubt that you have. Lo puedes hacer en español si quieres.
Con las recomendaciones del GAFI, del FATF, ¿no? The 40 recommendations about virtual asset, you think that will accelerate the regulation of the crypto world? And because mainly the countries are obligated to comply. That will help the industry?
Do you guys want to, Henrique, do you want to take that first and I'll share my thoughts?
Yes, I think that the regulation has to come, right? And it's going to be individually by country, right? As soon as the first one starts, right? If the US starts with the regulation, others are going to follow. At least going to follow the basics, right? So one of the basic things, we don't want to talk about the FTX, but please segregate the funds of the customers and yours, right? The business should have its own funds, and the customer should be segregated, right? This is one-on-one.
I think there's a Wild West right now going on in the crypto exchanges side, except for FoxBit there, 100%, right? But that said, going to the adopting of applications of, I think that's going to require regulation. And it's a bit of a chicken and the egg in which regulation is not going to come on an industry that is doing hundreds of thousands of dollars in transactions daily. That's negligible, right, for a $1 trillion market. However, once there's more volume going through and regulators are seeing the need for the apps, the merchants, for example, that Jhoel is going to be onboarding to Nuvei, then that infrastructure has to be there, the regulation has to be there, the compliance has to be there, the generally acceptable accountable principles has to be there. How's it going to hold on the balance sheet, for example? How do you comply? How do you report? All of that infrastructure has to be there. And I don't think companies are going to want to adopt it until they are safe. Because the biggest challenge that I think on the crypto side is, great, companies are going to start using this, and then all of a sudden the country's saying, don't do that. Or it's effective immediately, you have to pause transactions. The PR hit, I think, is just not worth it right now. And speaking with some of the larger companies here at this event, I asked them, they're banks and they're aggregators. What's their exposure to crypto? What's their interest? Their answer, we follow it very closely. We think it's interesting, which to me is we're not doing anything, right? But we're not going to do anything until our traditional banks accept the fact that we have a crypto position. They don't want to risk everything that they've built up until now on a new technology and the volatility that it has, not just from a financial standpoint, but much more from a compliance and regulatory standpoint. So I didn't give a clear answer, but it's chicken and the egg on this side. The more volume that goes to shift on the B2B side that we see, the faster we'll get the regulation, which will help adoption, and we're on a positive cycle to go through. Timing-wise, which I think is going to be your next question, Rafael, as far as how soon are we going to see this? This is not going to be measured in months. I think it's going to be measured in years, and I'm going to be having the same conversation next year, and there's going to be a minor adjustment, but an adoption, I don't think it's going to be game changer. But by 2030, I hope to be retired on my yacht, and by that time, everybody's going to have it in position. I think that's the key piece.
And you have a lot of Shiba Inu, right?
That's the driver. Listen, we hit out of time. I'm a big talker. I see Priscilla rushing us off the stage. If there are any additional questions about this, please ask the experts, Jhoel and Henrique on this. And if you want to talk about my yachts there, come to me and we'll talk. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.